So please welcome him, a great man, Senator Rick Santorum in Tioga, North Dakota.
It is great to be here in Tioga, North Dakota. It's great to be here and as Scott had just said, in the real America, where folks go out and get it done and are contributing greatly to the energy security of our country, and obviously going through a lot of sacrifices in the process, a lot of opportunities in the process. I want to thank Kevin for his kind words. I want to thank Scott for his very warm introduction. Let me introduce, because I know there's a lot of families here, let me introduce a member of my family who's traveling with us. Karen and I, my wife and I, have been married for 21 years. We are blessed with 7 children that we're raising, and our oldest of our 7, our 20-year-old, is here with me today, and that's my daughter Elizabeth, who's right over there. I understand, as Scott was saying, that this is a difficult time here at the school, and you certainly have all of our thoughts and my prayers, and we've been praying for you since I found out about it, and I don't know what words can express what you're going through. I know the hardship of loss and what it can mean on a community, and I just want to say to all of you that you will be in our prayers, and I know this is a difficult struggle. All I can say is that we just pray for meeting out of this, and somehow some good will come. I know that's hard to figure right now. I've gone through my share of hardship in my life, and went through the loss of a child myself. And I can tell you that at the time that happens, you can't possibly think that there's anything good that can happen. But if you stay close to God and you pray, you ask for that gift of understanding, that peace that comes that only He can give you. That blessing too will come someday, in some way, and that life will not be in vain. And so that's what you pray for, and certainly I would pray for that for each and every one of you as you go through this difficult time. Let me just say that I also say that you're going through a difficult time too, because you're going through growing pains. You've got a community here that is exploding at the seams in many respects, and with that come difficulties, and also opportunities. The opportunity to create wealth and create opportunity, to the opportunity to be able to contribute to your country. What you're doing here and producing the resources that fuel the nation. And yet I understand the frustration you have with a federal government that doesn't seem to be particularly tuned in to your concerns here. That sees this area as not an asset that needs to be developed, an opportunity to create economic wealth and prosperity and energy security. But in many respects, I see an administration that sees this region of our country and this region, this northwest corner of North Dakota, as a liability. That we have all this carbon in the ground that if we take it out of the ground, it's going to cause problems in our country. That is unfortunately how some people see what is going on here in the Bakken. And I think one of the people who sees it that way is the President. There really isn't any other reason that I can possibly fathom why the President of the United States wouldn't authorize a pipeline to get this incredibly valuable sweet crude to the refineries that are in desperate need of it. And it's not going to be just in desperate need of it now, but even more so going forward. If you look at the situation around America and the supply of crude that's coming into our refineries, to allow us to not only produce that oil, refine that oil, but also to create the opportunity for more energy security. You have Alaska, which right now is producing about 500,000 barrels a day. Well, unfortunately, within less than 10 years, unless we open up the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge for more oil production, those fields that have been in play for about 40 or 50 years now are depleted. And as a result of that, the pipeline is at a point where it may have to shut down. because there simply isn't enough flow to keep the oil moving. So that could mean a loss of 500 to 350,000 barrels a day here to the United States. On top of that, Mexico within the next 5 years will probably become an importer of oil instead of an exporter. We have about 1.5 million barrels we get from Mexico. We're not going to have that in a handful of years. Venezuela, 2.5 million barrels a day of heavy crude, but nevertheless still crude that we produce here in this country. The gasoline is produced here in this country. The products are produced here. Well, they're building a refinery. Not they are, China is. China's building a refinery, and let me assure you that that gasoline isn't coming to America anymore. So I just share that with you that we're looking at a 4 to 5 million barrel a day reduction in the amount of crude that's going to be available in our market here. And here we have an opportunity to replace not all of that, but a chunk of it, and get that to market and create even more wealth here in this area, and create opportunities in building that pipeline and getting more oil, obviously, from Canada shipped down on that pipeline. And yet, for some inexplicable reason, the President of the United States has shut that down. That, to me, is a affront to our national security. It will no doubt, now that this project has been delayed at least a year, it will no doubt have a huge economic impact on our country down the road. Before that pipeline can go into service, we are going to see reductions in the amount of crude that's coming into this country, and prices are going to be effective as a result of that. But I will pledge to you here today, people always ask me, what are the first things you're going to do when you're in office? On day one, we will sign the order to begin the commencement of the production of the Keystone Pipeline. We will build that pipeline on day one. And what that will mean for this area of the country is obviously more job creation for those who are going to be employed on building the pipeline, but obviously a path to create more opportunities to sell your oil at a better price that can be piped, which is, by the way, this is what, again, it just doesn't make any sense. Scott talked about taking 500 trucks off the road here. We understand, obviously, now, you know the dangers, not just the congestion, but the dangers associated with having these heavy trucks. Well, you can take those trucks off the road by building pipelines and create more safety in the community, more safety in the transportation of that oil, and again, a better price for an American-created product, which is the oil that's being created here. Again, you sort of scratch your head and say, why would a president not do things that is for the public safety of this region of the country, that is for better pricing for the products that we have here, which means more economic opportunities, for using pipelines that are safer to transport that oil? All of this makes no sense unless you have a president who, in my opinion, sees that energy consumption in America is a problem, not a good. That we need to have less energy consumption, and one way to do that is to make energy prices higher. He won't deliberately go out and say it. He goes out and gives this statistic that energy production, oil production is up. Well, it has nothing to do with his policies. His policies have done everything they can to slow down energy production. The whole uncertainty around the EPA. Well, just so you know, I come from Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we have Marcellus Shale, which is hydrofracked, just like the oil is here, the gas is here, and we have Unity Shale. Not so much in Pennsylvania, a little bit more in Ohio, but again, that's oil that we're getting, again, using hydrofracking. And up until just this last year or so, you didn't see much talk about the dangers of hydrofracking. But now you see much more of that because this issue has been politicized. Again, they're not using good science here. What we have are literally thousands and hundreds of thousands of wells that have been hydraulically fracked in the past. And again, given particularly here, where you have this big layer of what's what I'm looking for? You have a lot of rock in between your groundwater and your shale. We do in Pennsylvania not as much as you do. You have literally you have like 10,000 feet or more
We're in Pennsylvania, we have about 5 or 6. Still a lot of distance. Not to worry about the impact on groundwater. But again, you have a president who's not interested in science. He's interested in politics. And instead of doing something that is in the best interest of creating energy security for our country and economic growth, he plays petty politics and partisan politics and special interest politics. And it's very disappointing. So I came here to learn the potential of the Bakken and the opportunities that are available for communities here. And I'm looking at ways in which we can help this community. And clearly one is obviously to build a pipeline. The other is to make sure that we have transportation systems that will work for our rural communities. And we've had transportation bills in the past that have focused exclusively on, in many respects, pet projects. Instead of, what the key is that our federal dollars should be used for interstate transportation of moving goods and commerce. This is the central reason why we have a transportation bill, and we've gotten away from that. What does that mean? That it means improving corridors, like the corridors that are feeding the country with oil here from the Bakken, improving those corridors so commerce can be transacted not just efficiently but safely. And so getting the resources here in North Dakota for that interstate commerce to flow, again, efficiently and safely, will be a priority of our administration to make sure that we get that oil to market before the pipeline is built, and we do so in a way that creates the safest possible environment for the people here in North Dakota. There's other issues, obviously, that are important to the people here, and I want to share a few of those things with you. I'm a candidate that goes around and talks about growing the economy, and I think one of the reasons that we've seen this economy suffer and a lot of people in America not be able to participate in the greatness of our economic prosperity is because we've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs in this country. We used to have 21% of the people in this country employed in manufacturing. It's now down to 9%. And with that, a lot of jobs, a lot of blue-collar workers, a lot of people who used to be able to support families have lost their opportunity to do so. One of the key things to change if we are going to bring manufacturing jobs here is the way the government interacts with them. I know here in North Dakota you have the uncertainty and the overregulation that is going on, whether it's in the energy industry or the manufacturing or agriculture. I've heard from some of your farmers here, as I've heard from farmers all over the country, about the dust regulations and a whole host of other things where the government has come in and basically told you, the person out here in the community, the landowner or the business person, that they care more about the quality of life that you have and you're in the environment that the people who live in the community do. I think that's just false. I don't know of anybody who's a farmer, a rancher. I don't know anybody who's a manufacturer who doesn't care more about the quality of life in their community than a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. You care about your air, you care about the water you drink, you care about the wildlife and the state of the community, and we need to trust you. This is one of the fundamental issues in this election, is that we need to have folks in Washington who trust the states, who trust the local community, and yes, even trust the business person. That we need to be working with you instead of being at war with you, because we think we know better how to run your business or run your state or run your community. We need a government in Washington that says we want you to participate in the greatness of America, and we believe that you can create a great and prosperous country from the bottom up, believing in free people, believing in your ability to provide for yourselves and your family, not from the top down. And one of the things that I've talked about is the regulatory environment in this country. I've talked about energy. Regulation is also a big key. In the last 2 administrations under President Clinton and President Bush, the administration's averaged about 60 rules and regulations a year that cost businesses over $100 million a year. Those are the big, high-cost regulations. President Obama last year alone did 2.5 times that number in 1 year. He has decided that all the knowledge and all the compassion and concern resides inside the Beltway in Washington, D.C., and that you can't be trusted with freedom. That we need to have folks who are going to micromanage your business, your farms, your ranch, and even your home. Well, what I've said is I will repeal every single one of those regulations. We will work with you. We will work with the people who are affected by those regulations to make them in a regulation that helps you comply with the laws to make sure that you can provide the best possible environment instead of having government micromanage it for you. And the final thing, I talk about energy, I talk about regulations, I also talk about taxes when it comes to manufacturing. If we can do those three things, keep the price of energy stable and low here in America, if we can keep the regulatory environment positive for folks who are not uncertain about what the government's going to do to them next, but have a level of certainty and confidence the government is someone who is on their side, not trying to be against them. And we can create a tax situation that will incentivize people to take risk. I take the corporate tax, which is 35%, and as of April 1 will be the highest in the world. Japan is cutting theirs. We aren't. The president's not proposing that. In his budget, he didn't propose any kind of real tax reductions. All he did was propose tax increases. And, of course, more spending. And, of course, huge deficits as far as the eye can see. Why? Because this economy isn't going to grow under high taxes, high regulations, and big deficits. And so that's the future. That's the future that we have to decide here. And so what I proposed is that we need to take the corporate tax and cut it in half and make it a net profits tax. Why is that? Let's make it a flat tax, a corporate flat tax. Now why? Well, because if you look at the effective tax rate of small businesses versus large, most large businesses in America have huge tax compliance and accountants and auditors and lawyers looking at how they can reduce their tax burden. If you're a small business, you can't afford to do that. So you end up paying a higher effective rate. Smaller businesses end up paying a higher effective rate of taxes than the big guys who can find every tax loophole and structure their organization to take advantage of it. Well, if we flatten the tax code out and say that the big corporations are going to pay the same as the little guys, you've now created a level playing field for small businesses to compete against big businesses. If you reduce the regulatory burden, so big businesses who, again, have these big compliance departments don't have an advantage when it comes to regulations and being able to deal with them, you create a level playing field for small businesses here in North Dakota to compete when it comes to innovation against the big guys who are their competitors. And finally, for manufacturers, what we do is manufacturing and processing, and by the way, oil and gas processing would be treated this way. We zero out the corporate tax. We want the jobs that are going overseas to China and Mexico to come back to the United States and create real jobs again that will employ people at great wages to support a family in America. And you get a powerful combination of an energy, of a booming economy in energy production, and a booming manufacturing sector of the economy. Everybody in America will now have the opportunity to rise again, because those are jobs that we can take and employ people from all different skill levels and give them the kind of paying jobs that what we're seeing here in the Bakken. You look at the quality of the jobs here and the wages being paid. You can see what can happen when you make things, when you create wealth. Service jobs are great, but creating wealth, creating something that people want to buy, what creates the kind of jobs that can sustain families. That's the message I'm taking out across this country. That's the message that you've proven here in the Bakken, that you can in fact create wealth. You can do it in a way that's environmentally safe, and you can create opportunities for our country to be secure and safe and not relying upon, well, countries like not so friendly countries in the Middle East to provide for our oil. So I just want to say first, and my last thing I want to say is thank you. thank you for stepping up and for taking the hassle, yes, and also the opportunity that comes with an economy bursting at the seams. You have that here in this area, and there are obviously growing pains. But what you're doing is providing a very, very key resource to our country that is needed and will be needed even more. And I want to assure you that as President of the United States, I'll have your back. And we will make sure that we work together to make that happen. Thank you. I'll be happy to take questions.
Speaking of families, how's Bella?
Well, yeah, I mentioned we have 7 children, and our youngest, Isabella, who we call Bella, is a special needs little girl. She was born with a genetic condition called trisomy 18, and which, if you look at the literature, has about a 1% survival rate after a year. And so she is a little miracle. She's 3.5, and she has a wonderful, happy, healthy life. But if she does get sick, if she has any kind of cold, it's a life-threatening situation. Well, she ran into that a couple of weeks ago. We had to take a couple of days off the campaign trail, ended up in the hospital, and she was in pretty serious condition for a while. But she, thanks to all of your prayers, and I really do mean that, the recovery she had was really miraculous for her. And Karen and I and the kids can't think of anything that led us to the conclusion that it was all of the prayers that we had from people all across this country. So for those of you who did, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of our family. She is doing great, and we're looking forward to many, many healthy, happy years with her.
All right. Fantastic. This fellow right here is searching the crowd for somebody that wants to ask a question. Mark Skokovo, who's one of the great Tea Party patriots, I don't know if you know this, Senator, but North Dakota was represented by all Democrats up until 2010, since our buddy Mark Andrews left the Senate in 1986.
I was aware of that.
And I never could quite figure that out. And every time I go somewhere, they say, "What's the deal with North Dakota? Red state, I said, well, they just, wear their flannel shirt, come on, and pretend they're one of us." And then the Tea Party was born. And a guy like this just said, got it done, and did what the Republican Party couldn't do. And all of a sudden, we got a game changer going on. And 2 or 3 seats are now held by the Republican Party, getting it done. And in 2010 and 2012, that's going to look pretty good.
We're counting on you. I always tell people, if you want to see government shrunk, I mean, certainly the most important thing is to replace this president who will continue. I mean, you've just seen the beginning of a President Obama without the fear of having to run for re-election. Would you think they've expanded and grown government now? Just imagine what he's going to do when he doesn't have to worry about that. The other thing is you've got to help us. We need a United States Senate with at least 50 votes to repeal Obamacare and to start rolling back some of the things and start pushing forward some of the free market and competitive postures that will create opportunities for everybody across this country. So you are a very important part of that here in the state of North Dakota. You need to help us and finish the job of making sure that we have 2 Republican senators here from the state of North Dakota in this election.
I've asked you a question once before in Iowa. One of the things that I was really struck by is how differently your attitude about foreign policy, defending the border, defense in general, and your attitude about the Middle East and Israel, how your whole attitude about American military and defense is so different from Obama. And I'd like you to just comment on that, please, sir.
I believe that if we need to go out in the world and make sure that any threats to the United States are confronted, and at the same time, we have to work with our allies and let our allies know that they can trust us, that we will be with them, that it's like any other personal relationship that you have. You want your friends to know that you're their friend, and if you need them, and if they need you, you'll be there for each other. It's really no different in international affairs. It's the same case. Hopefully there aren't too many folks here who have enemies, but unfortunately evil exists in the world. And as we've seen with the tale of history, that if evil is not confronted and is not either contained or defeated, then it will grow and prosper, and it will, in fact, eventually threaten us here in our homeland. And so I've taken the approach that we need to actively go out and engage our friends. And it's not what this president has done. Some of our best friends, Israel is an example. The president systematically has betrayed Israel at almost every turn. His most recent announcement that Israel is planning an attack on Iran, I can think of no greater betrayal than taking intelligence information from an ally and divulging it to the world, and then criticizing them for defending themselves. As Iranians, the Iranian government talks about Israel as being a cancer that has to be excised, and is developing a nuclear weapon that will give them a shield so they can go and foment terror, particularly in the state of Israel. That the President of the United States would turn his back on our friend. There's a conflict going on right now that most people aren't aware of. There's a little island group off the coast of Argentina called the Falkland Islands. The Falkland Islands are British territory. They have been. In fact, there was a war fought during the Reagan administration on the Falkland Islands, where President Reagan stood behind Maggie Thatcher in that revolt that went on down there. Well, we have Argentina claims the Falkland Islands. Why? Because they're off their coast. But they're British territory. It's a British island. And yet, the President of the United States refers to the Falkland Islands as disputed territory. Now, there is no better friend of the United States than the UK. Yet, the President of the United States on day one sends back the bust of Winston Churchill, gives the Queen of England a gift that is an insult, did the same to the Prime Minister of the UK, gave him a set of DVDs that don't operate or work in the UK. I mean, he goes out of his way to, again, alienate our best friends. Probably the worst insult he did for the British is that a couple of years ago he went to France and called France our best ally in the world. I don't know if the best ally in the world is someone who never supports us, always opposes us, and gives us grief when we do anything, I guess the French are the best allies in the world. But how would you feel? So yeah, we need to be friends with our friends, and of course, those who want to do harm to our allies and to us, we have to confront. They need to respect us. And right now, the big issue of the day is Iran, the development of a nuclear weapon, and let me assure you, they do not respect us. They are fomenting terror all over the world. There were just some bombs in Southeast Asia that were set off by Iranians. The head of Director of National Intelligence just last week said that there are plans here in the United States that Iran is planning to do terrorist attacks here, and what does the president do? He appeases. He doesn't confront. He doesn't try to stop this nation, which even before they have a nuclear weapon, is the greatest fomenter of terror around the world. Imagine if they have a nuclear shield that says that they won't be attacked. What kind of country and what kind of world will we live in? This is a fundamental threat to your security. You folks are here, you think, well, we're up here in northwest North Dakota, no one's going to bother us. Folks, you've got energy here. They're going to bother you. They'll bother you because you are a very key and strategic resource for this country. No one is safe. No one is safe from asymmetric threats, terrorism. And that's what Iran will be all about unless we stop them from getting that nuclear weapon. Yes, Scott?
This is Dave Ellison, your last question, because we do have another appointment on the other end of the stage here. So, and by the way, in vintage North Dakota fashion, Mark's out there trying to find somebody to ask a question, and as soon as you look and see him ask a question, oh, don't look at me.
That happened over here to this poor woman. Said, no, don't want to ask a question. Well, that girl's up for the purple, but it's her fault because she said she wants to ask a question. So I came back over here. This is Susan, and this is Taylor, and you know you're in Tioga, North Dakota when you're sitting in a school, and I look over here, and Taylor's got a Holy Bible.
There you go.
right next to her. God bless America. Susan, stand up and ask the question of Senator Santorum.
I'm a nurse here in Tioga, and I know that healthcare needs to change in some way. Have you got an opinion on how we can change healthcare?
I sure do. I'm glad you asked me. How many people here have ever heard of something called health savings accounts? Anybody? A few folks? I'm glad we hear that applause. Do you know who the first person in America to introduce a bill on health savings accounts? Why? Because I believe in you. I believe in the American consumer. I believe in people having control of their health and their lives. And that's what health savings accounts do. It's the complete opposite of Obamacare, Romneycare, any of these government-run healthcare systems. They believe in top-down that they're going to force you to buy an insurance product that they want. They'll give you 5 choices. The president gives you 5. Governor Romney gave you 4. But they'll tell you how much you're going to pay. They're going to tell your employer how much they're going to be fined if they don't. They're going to tell you how much you'll be fined if you don't. All of these things, they'll tell you what clauses and conditions will be in your insurance policy, what benefits are going to be covered. As we saw recently with Obamacare, they'll even tell churches things that they have to cover that the churches don't believe is morally right for them to do. But it doesn't matter because the government will tell you what they think is best for you. You see, I don't think that's the best way to provide health care. I think you should have the ability to have the opportunity to decide what's best for you. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you as consumers are involved. Health savings accounts are all about a bottom-up way of returning health care to an economy. Because health care right now is not an economic transaction. How many people have received a bill in the mail from your insurance provider that says, this is not a bill? Now, a lot of your kids haven't done that yet, but let me assure you, you will. You'll receive things from your insurance company all the time saying, this is not a bill. No other place in America do you get a bill that says this isn't a bill. It looks like a bill, but they say it's not a bill. Why? Because you don't really participate in the economy of healthcare. We have an insurance company that says we're going to charge you, well, the hospital charges you $10,000 for a particular procedure. And then the next line you'll see in this not bill is not allowed amount. I don't know what that is, but it's a lot. They usually knock off the price by about 80%. And then they say insured coverage, oh, that's another 80%, and then you pay the rest. So if a $10,000 bill, you pay a couple $100. Now, if you got a bill from that, let's say from the grocery store, you went through and they handed you, instead of giving you saying how much money or you put your card through, they'd give you a bill that said, this is not a bill. And they say, well, you really think this cost $1,000, but because we're going to write off this much and we're going to insure it, you only have to pay $20. You'd think, boy, somebody's getting ripped off here. The problem is that we have an insurance system that doesn't work because it's not insurance. We have insurance on automobile insurance. How many people turn in your oil changes to your automobile insurance company? Nobody. How many people, if you had a $500 deductible auto insurance policy, and you got in a little accident and it cost $700 to repair your car, how many people would turn in the $700 claim? Nobody. Why? Because your insurance premium would go up, right? Okay, then why do you turn your doctor bill in? Why do you turn your blood work in? Why do you turn your x-rays in? And then say, hey, why are my insurance premiums going up? Because health insurance isn't insurance anymore. You're paying the insurance company to pay your bills. And then you're wondering why it costs so much. We need to get the insurance company out of paying bills and back into insuring against high-cost health care. Things that are unanticipated expenses. That's what insurance is for. Unanticipated costly expenses. It isn't to pay all of your bills. They're making money. Now the insurance companies won't like this because they make a lot of money paying your bills. And by the way, since you have no idea what it costs, they can make all sorts of deals with doctors and hospitals that make it profitable for them, instead of you going out and knowing what your doctors and hospitals charge and then making decisions as to whether you want to buy this service or not, or whether you want to go to another doctor. These are the kinds of things that made America the greatest country in the history of the world, which is 300 million consumers going out, knowing about what the quality of the care and the cost of the care, and making decisions as to whether they want to buy it or not. That's how things work best in America to control costs, getting you out there on the front line. We don't control costs well when government runs things. And that's what we have now in America. Government-run health insurance, even before Obamacare. Because the insurance companies are these big entities that almost act like them. So I just share with you that if you really want to have a transformational system of health care, you need to put a president there who believes in you, who will repeal Obamacare, who will talk to the American public about engaging in not just replacing a government-run healthcare system with Obamacare, but replacing it with a system that believes in you and gives you the power over your health and your health care.